Well, it's getting a right proper test now. Absolutely sheeting it down. We've got thunder going on. Rolling thunder. Not seen any lightning yet, and I don't suppose I should be near metal poles that have spikes pointing up. So after a successful camping use, where I had the tarp over the tent, having got home I wanted to try the tarp as a standalone using the poles front and back, because the configuration when camping was to have the front pole in position, but the rear pole wasn't there because the actual tarp sat on the top of the tent, and that's what was supporting it. And then obviously guy roped out. Oh, thunder. Rain has started, thunder. So I guess we'll just leave it up and see how it does. But it did really well on the camping trip, and I'm really pleased with the way that it's gone up very quickly in this self-supporting role. I know it's a fairly lightweight tarp, and isn't the heavy duty or the double stitching in most places, but it's very lightweight and it packs away to nothing. You've seen the bag, which is there on the can you hear the thunder? So you can see the bag there. The bag is way oversized for this tarp, but that's no criticism. It's just you can pack it down a lot smaller, and it's the Expedition Tarp, the OEX Expedition Tarp. So this did its job for me while camping, because I wanted to have not so much to shelter the tent, but to have a little porch area, just a small porch area to sit under if the weather was going to be really bad. Now the weather didn't turn out as bad as expected, but I still used it. And if anything, the only slight criticism I'd have, and it isn't a criticism of the tarp, it's just the configuration of my tent, the Nature Hike Cloud Up 2, has a very curvature top, so that it's a very curved top, a little bit like a whale hump. And with this tarp on top of that particular tent, when it was tensioned down, the center pole, the roof pole of the tent, was sort of bending one way or the other. Now I managed to get a sort of happy balance, and it worked. It really did its job in very heavy rain and high winds. Everything survived well. So I got to thinking when I got home, let's see how the tarp goes up on its own with the rear pole in place, and you can see from these images here that it's gone up really well. And then I got to thinking, well, this will pack away to next to nothing, and when I go travelling, this could well be shelter away from the tent, next to the tent, that I could use for basically for sitting under if it's wet or if it's really hot, and for cooking in. And now I've got it up, and it went up so quickly. I'm really happy with that. So bearing in mind it's not to your sort of standard of your real top quality tarps, it's just a tarp that you will utilize sort of more for what I've just expressed, which is for cooking, bit of shelter. I don't think it's one that you'd want to sleep under or anything like that, but what am I to know? So we've now got rain, we've got thunder, so it's probably going to lash down soon enough. In fact, it's starting to rain a bit heavier now. So I'm sat under the canopy, I'm probably about 2 foot off the open side, the larger opening. So I'm sat 2 foot into the tarp, in the middle of it basically, and to be honest, you know, I'm sat here, I'm 5'9", and actually you can see the space I've got here. Obviously the further back I sit, the more headroom, but I know that my Helinox chair will sit under here fine, probably a little bit more towards the large opening, but sitting on the ground in here there's bags of room. And you know, I could envisage that if it's a little bit wet and you don't want to sit inside the tent, this would be great for just sitting out, lying around, reading, cooking, and sheltering from the sun if it's a really hot climate that you're going to. And this will pack down to a small size, a lot smaller than the bag that you've seen. And the poles, they are all separate. They're not actually, they haven't got the elasticated rope between them. And the reason for that is that you can do different configurations. So you could have, like now I've got two at the back, and I've got 3 at the front. But indeed you could put 1 at the back, especially if you're getting a bit of really bad weather, and that gets that going sloping down further, and you could have that with an extra pole on. So it's designed that way to be reconfigured. Okay guys, so I'm just going to show you a little bit close up. So if you look at this strengthening triangle, you've got some double stitching going on here. It's got taped seams as well, so you know that's good. So around the edges and at the top of the strengthening piece, you've got double stitching. But the little strengthening bar here, which has got the material on to hold, I guess, this eyelet. Let's just have a look. Yeah, so this here is basically strengthening the eyelet, and that's single stitched. So I don't know why they've single stitched that when everything else on these corners has been double stitched and the edges have been double stitched. So I've no idea why they've done that. And coming up to the midway strengthening extra patch, I think it's extra piece of material to strengthen it, and that's single stitched. So maybe on the corners that's where the greatest stress is, so it gets a double stitching, and for these other triangular pieces, midway up or midway down, they only need single stitching. And again, some of you that know more about these things might be able to tell me. I suspect it's because the corners get the greater stress, so they will get greater stress than anywhere else. I mean, the guy lines are just what you'd consider to be standard, reasonably cheap, I suppose, guidelines, but seem to be okay for this job. And this is the rear piece, which again single stitched there, and the piece of material which is under this section here, that's single stitched. Along the actual ridge line, going right from back to front as we're looking, that's double stitched. And remember, taped seams as well. In fact, I'm going to drop that down one pole just to see. So there's the tarp now with one section pole taken out. You can see I've taken out the section pole down here. And it's given it a lower profile. Now in higher winds, that's going to be a bit of a necessity. So, to be honest, that works well. The pole itself doesn't seem to want to bend as much, and I suppose that's because there isn't as many links, but it still seems to be a bit that way. But you've got to remember, I'm offering a little bit of what I think is a weakness, which is the poles, but it did withstand really getting battered one Friday night. So even with lowering the front end by one pole section, I can still sit up in here, and I'm still about 2 foot away from the larger entrance behind, and I guess there's about 5-6 inches above at this point. Now if I move back, we'll just see what it looks like then. So a bit of a shuffle back, but anyway, I've got back, and you can see the headroom quite clearly behind. I think with the lower profile, with the one section removed, I think sitting on the Helinox chair might be problematic. I don't think that would work quite as well. It would definitely work with the extra pole section in. So, was this tarp worth it? Absolutely yes, because of the purpose that I had for it. Is it good value for money? Well, I think as a complete system, yes it is. Will it last? Who knows? We'll find out over time. The only one, and I'm going to bring the camera in now, I'm going to zoom in because it's raining very heavily. The only one criticism I've got of it is that obviously with this type of setup you've got to tension it down, otherwise it's going to loosen up and, if not blow away, it's going to go over. But the one little criticism I've got is the poles. I mean, they're 11 centimetres, so on the face of it they're pretty solid, but when you look, and I think possibly you can get the sort of look there, maybe come out a bit. When it's all tensioned up, this pole, the bigger pole, just seems to bend a little bit. Now I've straightened it there now, so that's okay again now. But I've noticed that it does sort of bend a bit. But somebody else could maybe tell me whether that's right or whether that's wrong. Maybe they're designed to do that. You've got to remember, this is the first time I've ever used a tarp. First time, well, the camping trip was the first time I've ever put one up. But for me, the poles don't seem to be particularly strong. But maybe that's how they are. I really don't know. But I welcome your comments on that. If for you people that are into tarps, I know you're going to say this isn't a very good quality one and it's not as good as others out on the market. I know that. Bought this for a purpose, remember. But I'd really like to know from you what sort of poles you use with your tarps. Whether even the quality ones, bend a bit. I mean, it's not bent now, but it does sort of seem to bend out of place. And then you have to keep straightening it. So for now, guys, for the reasons I've said, this has been a great success. It served its purpose, did its job. Now I've set it up in this configuration, freestanding, I am going to use this again. Still might go and buy a more heavy duty quality one, but, and I keep saying that, this is okay, this is fine for what it's purposes. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it for the sort of use that I've expressed, which is as an extra shelter going over your tent or alongside your tent whilst camping. Very lightweight, only weighs 1 kilogram, and to be honest, I'm going to try it, pack it away differently than the bag that it comes in. Obviously, you've seen the video of the OEX Expedition Tarp set up as a standalone tarp, and I've put a couple of pictures on, or I will put a couple of pictures on showing it different heights. For somebody that's never used a tarp before, and even though it's only an OEX tarp, firstly, I'm an absolute convert now. It's only taken me 60 years, but I'm a convert. And secondly, the OEX Expedition Tarp, for all its relative lightness, it's not as heavy duty as even one of their own tarps that they've got, or some of the more other branded ones that people buy. So it's not a heavy duty tarp. I bought it for a purpose. That purpose was that very last minute I needed some little extra shelter just over the small tent that I've got, the Nature High Cloud Up 2. And it did its job. The weather through the night was abysmal, heavy rain, high winds. The following day it wasn't as bad as was forecast, but through the night it was. And the tarp held up, needed to be retensioned in the morning, but it hadn't come loose or anything like that. It just needed getting taut again. So, from a point of view of that OEX Expedition Tarp, taking everything into account that I've said, it's a huge thumbs up. It did its job. It did what it said it could do on the tin, and it gave me the shelter. It withstood the rain. It's withstood the rain when I put it up in my garden, because I put a towel underneath, went sat under it, checked the towel over 2 or 3 hours of very heavy rain, completely dry. So actually, regardless of whether it's lightweight or heavy duty, it did its job. So you've got to say it worked. Now, just want to touch on one thing before I let you go in peace. I've mentioned in the previous video, the erection video while I was camping, that the bag, that's it. So that's the bag for the tarp. And when you look at it on the shelf, compared to the heavier duty OEX tarp, which is probably about that size, you think, oh God, that's a bit big. But I thought immediately that it was the bag was oversized. So what I've done is I've repackaged it in a different bag. Funnily enough, coincidentally, it's an OEX lightweight dry bag. Compression type pear sack, and this put aside the actual poles because they're too long to squeeze down to what I've done, but they will mount anywhere or throw in a bag. That is what it packs down to. Actually, in truth, that would go down even further. There's still air in there, so that would go down further. But in the centre of that, you've got the pegs. So the pegs would probably go in the other bag, to be honest with you. But that is what it's gone down to, and it would go down further. In fact, just to prove the point, let's blow some air out of this. So if you look at that, once you've compressed it and fastened it, that's what it goes down to. So when you see it on the shelf, if that's what you're interested in, Don't be put off by the size of the bag, because that's what it packs down to. And to be honest, that is more in keeping with the size of the pack for the heavier duty OEX Tarp. So, guys, that's solved my problem from a point of view of lightweight packing, because I do intend to travel in a very light manner, and so anything I add has to pack small and has to be light. Well, the whole kit of the Expedition Tarp is a kilogram, so the weight is no problem. But that bag, the big bag, well, it's just awkward getting it in. However, now that can travel with me whenever I travel, and at least if the weather's pretty poor, I've got one of my small tents, I can get some shelter to cook and to shelter from the weather if it's really, really bad, and you just need to hang about. So it's a bit unexpected. I bought the tarp simply because it was the only thing I could find on the way down to a campsite when I knew the weather was going to be really bad. Didn't have any high expectations of it. I had never put a tarp up in my life, but it worked a treat. So when I asked at the very beginning of the first video what to do about it, from a point of view of camping in really heavy rain and high winds and horrible weather where you can't ride your motorbike, or you can't walk, it's just miserable weather, so you need to shelter, but you've got a small one-man or two-man tent that doesn't have much in terms of vestibule. The OEX Expedition Tarp has worked for me, so what can I do? Buy the tarp. I am probably going to buy a heavy-duty tarp as well, because I've really got into this. Everything, although it took a bit of time the first time round, when I put it up in my garden, it just went bang, 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 and it was up. And I've never done it before. I was a little bit frightened of tarps because it just seemed so complicated. But now, as I said to you, I'm a convert. Anyway, guys, I'm waffling. Thumbs up, double thumbs up, did its job, reasonable priced, and it packs down really small. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again.